GCN Tech this week declared that 99% of people are on the wrong bike.
Oh, yes. This is so right.
It's
So
almost
right.
as if they've been watching our videos.
Yeah, it is an incredibly bold statement, and I have to be honest, I have an inkling that it was probably a sensationalized one for the purpose of getting a good video title, but it did hook me in. I did watch the video, so well done, GCN. Essentially, Alex met a viewer in a cafe who asked him whether a certain unnamed, very stiff, very aggressive aero race bike would be a good purchase for them.
And presumably he said yes, and that you should build it up with the Dura-Race that you've got lying around in your shed.
Which we also did in a video the other day.
Yeah, you did.
There was a comment like, you just did a GCN. Yes, we did.
Jimmy doesn't know this, but this is his Dura-Ace that he's supposed to be building onto one of his bikes. I'm just going to tell him that it came from somewhere else, because we need it for the video, so he won't mind.
I had sympathy for Alex back then, have sympathy for Alex now. It's the same thing. Like, if anyone should have boxes of expensive group sets lying around, it is companies like ours. Mm-hmm. And none of which we're allowed to steal for our own bikes, sadly.
Well, the one of the Dura-Race we have actually is mine.
Oh, that's actually yours.
Yeah, it is.
And I was going to steal it. The company was going to steal it off you. So the pipeline, it goes one way. That's fine. Cade Media steals lots of our stuff, but we cannot steal back.
Right, back to the story. Ultimately, Alex was making the point that a lot of people who aren't racing would potentially, maybe, have a more enjoyable experience on a less aggressive bike optimized for the type of riding that they are doing. With the caveat being that, the right bike is the one that you're happy with. And ultimately, if you are perfectly comfortable and happy on a stiff, aggressive bike, then this message is not for you. However, I just thought it was interesting that the biggest cycling channel on YouTube, the OG influencers, are de-influencing on this, if you want to say so, because it's something that we've spoken about a lot before as well, isn't it?
Well, they surely, just like us, would like their audience to be able to make an informed decision. And there's no one's saying you have to buy this bike or you have to buy this bike. It's just like, here's the information, buy the one that's the most appropriate.
There's a lot of money put behind putting aero bikes in front of our faces. So I think it's good for all of these channels to... Do you know what the really hard thing is? You say one week in one video, this aero bike is great. So then almost like everyone's going, oh, aero bike, da 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 da. And then the next week you say, not everyone needs an aero bike. And then the aero bike people start saying, well, I want an aero bike, da da da. It's like you almost can't win in this space. You can't speak for everyone.
So many people have different needs and they ride in different ways. And it's almost like they're doing different sports. When the people approach it, if someone there might be someone who couldn't tolerate a really aggressive aero bike that well, but only rides an hour a week. And for that ride, they can tolerate it because it's a shorter amount of time and they're going to have a wicked time and it's going to handle really well and their weight distribution will be better. So it's going to corner really well and it's exciting and it looks great when it's hung on the wall in their kitchen, and therefore they should buy it.
I think what we do that's perhaps a bit different is we challenge marketing claims. And if something comes through and says, this bike is amazing and it's this real fast and it does all this stuff, we go, but I don't need those things. So we challenge people to look beyond the claims. And
that's the thing. There was a clip of Nick that I cut down and put on Instagram, which is like blown up to reaching people that are not our usual audience. And there's some people in the comments so they're outraged. He was saying something along the lines of, I don't like that the marketing... He starts it off with, buy what you want, but I don't think the marketing is appropriate for some of these aero bikes because they're saying you need to buy this. Whereas in a lot of cases for his customers, a steel bike or a titanium bike or something more relaxed is more appropriate. And there's comments like, who is this guy to tell me what I can and can't buy? And it's like, no. What Nick is trying to say is that there are other options out there that probably need to be considered, and the marketing is the thing that's telling you what you should be buying, and often that's not the case.
Yeah, Nick talks about this a lot. It's ultimately why he does custom builds, because he will take a customer in and say, well, what riding are you doing? What's important to you? What size are you? this is what I recommend, and then they can choose to either accept it or not accept it. And often that is not an aero top-end fancy bike. It is occasionally.
It's often light, fast bikes, but with a custom geometry, which is slightly shorter and taller.
I've been riding my Moss bike, which is a custom steel bike, a lot recently, and I haven't ridden it a lot in quite a number of years, and it's so good.
Yeah.
This is a running theme. Jimmy talks every week about how much he likes his
Moss bike.
his custom steel bike. When we talk about aero, I think it's really difficult to have a nuanced conversation, especially when you're clipping clips for Instagram. That's a recipe for making it look like we're really one-sided, and it's really difficult to get the point across that aero bikes are not a scam. Some people like them, and they work for some people, and they're fantastic machines for what they are. But I think maybe we see how much money goes behind the advertising of them. Like the press trips that you get to go on are always for the fancy aero bikes. The ad money that goes behind, not necessarily to our channel, but generally on YouTube or whatever, to press or reviews, always goes on the fancy aero bike. And it just, in terms of like the weighting that gives a consumer, you see a pro on it, who's your favorite pro, and it kind of says this has to be the best one, and everything else maybe feels like a substitute option. And I think what we, and I think GCN are trying to get across, is that there are other options, and we have to make a point of saying that, because as media, the aero bike is thrust in front of us so much, which ends up making it thrust in front of an audience so much as well.
I notice it when I'm editing the first look videos, and I want to steal a little bit of footage because we haven't filmed enough B-roll from the manufacturers' YouTubes or their websites, and they've made promo videos about their own bikes, and I can find loads for the high-end bikes, less for the medium price bikes, and then usually nothing at all for the entry-level bikes, even though they're probably selling mostly those entry-level bikes. There's more people buying them.
I do find
in some cases.
I do find it really interesting with the like super high-end bikes, because there's definitely some brands that have launched a Halo bike, and we know for a fact that they have very, very limited stock in them. So they're not even expecting to sell loads of that Halo piece bike, which I just find it so odd.
I just love to see like a cool video. Like, this is a bad example, but like Specialized Alley, they did actually do a bunch of fast riders riding it in a cool video about Specialized Alley. But like Giant Contend, something, Trek, the Damani AL. Is there a cool video about that? I couldn't find one.
Do you know what it reminds me of, Jimmy? Because we used to do that as well. When you're talking about not much stock of something, but that ends up getting the priority. When we owned Atticus, the clothing company, we used to do some wild designs, coloured bib shorts, knowing that it gets attention, it brings people in, and then people buy the black bib shorts.
I was just thinking of this analogy.
The giant Defy or whatever is the black bib short.
Oh, the Contend.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But the TCR, people go, oh, it's so shiny. And then they go, well, I'll just buy the cheap one.
Totally.
So
you get people in with the cool design, and then they buy maybe that's the ethos of the marketing.
Yeah. There's three things I wish the bike industry would do. Smaller bikes, as we've discussed 1 million times, market their endurance bikes better, and hype up the lower end models more with a sexy video. That's what I would love to see. Do you remember years ago, Trek did a thing which would mean none of that matters, which is different geometry. I think 3 different levels of geometry called like H1, H2, H3 of their high-end bikes. So can you imagine if you say it was a Trek Madone? I can't remember the exact details. You could buy a Trek Madone in 3 different geometries. So it doesn't feel like you're buying the endurance one. It feels like you're buying a cool race bike, but you can get a version with a slightly higher stack and slightly shorter. So it's going to be appropriate for loads of people. And I used to work in a bike shop called Bespoke in London, and that was the time when that range existed. I don't think it does anymore, but they were so easy to sell people through bike fitting. And that was the whole premise of the shop. They do bike fit first. There'd be a bunch of bike fit studios, and Trek was a huge one of the main bikes they sold because there was all these geometry options. And you I don't know, maybe there's it's a little bit the marketing. Maybe some people they don't want to choose an endurance bike because it doesn't feel like they're, I deserve a race bike. I want to be on that. I'm embarrassed to turn up on the group bike, which it shouldn't be at all. However, not everyone wants a bendy, flexible Cannondale Synapse or Roubaix. They want a tarmac that fits them.
In the same way that we've talked before about e-bikes feeling like, although they have such good application, some people feel like, I don't want to turn up on the group ride with that because it doesn't feel as good as the whatever. So it was a method of, I have a Trek Madone, you have a Trek Madone, you have a Trek Madone, but we all have slightly different geometries that fit us.
Yes.
And we all have a Trek Madone, which is the same one that X Pro is riding.
Yeah. It's been advertised to you all the time during the tour. If you watch pro cycling, all the time during pro cycling, you're watching Sagan riding an S-Works, and then you're like, go to buy one. It's like, well, can't really. I mean, I'll ride it, but maybe I can only tolerate it for an hour before I have to put my hands back on the bars and like sit upright and stretch my back out and all that. And if there's just a different geometry version, I don't know why people haven't done this.
I wonder why they stopped doing it. I wonder if, number one, I guess the inventory, you have to...
Maybe everyone still bought the slammed one.
Well, it's either that or it's you have to carry 3 times as much inventory. That's actually 3 different bike models, isn't it? All in the Madone.
Yeah.
Also, I wonder, do you remember... I said, do you remember, like they don't exist anymore? The Adidas Sambas that they made into the cleat version.
Above your head?
Yeah, there are some up there. I feel like End Clothing, which is like a high-end, non-bike, just like normal clothing shop, sold the Adidas Samba cleats, and they were getting loads of returns because people didn't realise that they were the cleats because they were called Adidas Samba and then a letter after it. Or something. I feel like did that not happen?
Yeah, I think they got loads of returns.
Because it wasn't clear enough that it was a cleat version. So do you think that you get people are like, oh, I think you'd be good on a Trek Madone H2, and you miss out the H2 bit and you just buy a Trek Madone and you end up getting the one when you actually wanted the 3.
Confuses people. And as soon as you introduce choice, then they go,
oh,
and
don't
just buy
know.
something
Whereas
else.
if you just know that I'd be better off on a specialised Roubaix rather than a tarmac, it's easier to differentiate. Because obviously we are very... ingrained in the industry, we would understand. But if you're an outsider coming in, is it more confusing?
It's definitely confusing.
I think it's a really good idea, but the fact that they're not doing it anymore and this idea didn't catch on, I just wonder why.
Argon 18 have a solution-ish. So they have some like big fat spacer thingy-majiggy that you literally hammer into the frame, and then the bearing sits atop it. And I think I don't know the size of it. It's maybe like 2 or 3 centimeters. It's like a decent amount of additional stack. So essentially the frame that you buy, and I believe they do it in the road and the gravel frame, you can either have this stack or not. And it is literally increasing the stack of the bike because the bearing sits at the top of it. It isn't just spacers. So there are some things out there, or at least I know Argon 18 are doing something which gives you essentially 2 different geometries. And because
it's reach that's the limiter, not the stack. The stack's one thing, but people can tolerate a lot of drop versus reach. And you're not changing the reach of the bike because the angles stay the same.
Well, it will be shorter if it's higher.
Yes, theoretically.
But I think I guess the point you're making there is reach in general is also just way too long. Yeah, that's my thoughts.
Whereas those Treks were fully shorter and higher, and they accounted for that with the rest of the geometry as well.
God, it's just some of the geometry charts we look at the minute are just absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, I feel like we say the same thing all the time.
No, it's annoying, isn't it?
That's enough of that. That's a can of worms.
I imagine there's a lot of racers or maybe just young, very flexible people listening to this going,
I don't care.
I don't care. I'm fine on my aerobike.
You'll care in 10 years.
Yeah, and if you're not finding your aerobike, get something else. It's obvious. But I guess the problem is it's not always obvious, or there are still a lot of people, 99% according to GCN, not my words, who are still maybe buying bikes that are not as comfortable, or they could find something better.
But I don't blame them.
Yeah, me neither.
Because the marketing makes things look, but not just the marketing, the choice makes things difficult. Because like, do you want to ride a Roubaix?
I mean, yes, I would quite like a Roubaix.
Would you prefer a Roubaix or an identical geometry tarmac version, which is like stiffer, doesn't have all the little squishy insert things in or whatever they're doing now, and says S-Works on the side of it. I get actually the Rue base says S-Works on the side of it. That's a good move. If you buy the super expensive one.
The honest answer is I would like both. I would use the Roubaix for gravel and I would use the tarmac for road. I am a prime example. Like, I fall for the marketing every time. I think technically my Canyon is endurance road bike, but it's still incredibly aggressive and far too aggressive for me. But I love it. I love that bike so much, and it hurts so much.
It is definitely not endurance geometry. It's the Ultimate, isn't it?
It's the Ultimate, which is endurance, isn't it?
No, their endurance one is endurance, isn't it?
Okay.
Yeah, Ultimate's like a race bike, but the like climbing one, not aero.
Fine, whatever. I mean, I just liked the colour of it, to be honest. And
Too right, yeah.
It's cool and it's light and it makes me feel fast. And it fucking kills. But you know what? Like, I get what you're saying, because I am the sucker for this.
You just said it makes you feel fast, and a lot of those race bikes make you feel fast because they're slightly more twitchy, and when you push, they're stiffer, and people like that feeling. And if you're riding it just at the weekends, you want that feeling. So make a slacker geometry one, please.
You said smaller range of bikes.
Yeah,
Why?
smaller bikes.
Oh, smaller bikes.
Just smaller bikes. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, not smaller range. The range should include smaller bikes.
A larger range of bikes, which includes
larger range
smaller
of
bikes.
Ooh, it's my first podcast back, Jimmy. It's putting so much pressure on me.
I would love to see some really cool marketing content and videos around entry-level stuff.
Yeah, we've made some.
Have we?
Yeah, we made the sickest tri-band video you've ever seen in your life.
What, the one where we put 15 grand's worth of stuff on it?
I meant like the first ever one we did. It's probably crap when we go and watch it back.
But that also isn't marketing content.
That's true. That was a legit review.
But what I mean is, I want to see the content coming out of these brands on the £1,500 bike, the £500 bike, and it like having the same level of commitment as the £10,000 bike.
Sure.
Because it does make such a difference in a lot of it is just perception. If a bike is made to look cool, it's cool. It's as simple as that. Mm-hmm. And let the industry start doing that with the bikes people are actually buying, so people can be proud of them and look at their £800 bike and be like, yeah, that is the nuts. And look how cool it looks in that photo, and look how cool it looks in that video. Like, yes, this is the one. Rather than go, oh, but maybe one day I'll be able to afford the £12,000 version of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, bro. Well, I mean, I feel like we have this conversation all the time, but
it's passion.
It is passion. And ultimately, well done, GCN, because it's not just us now.
Yeah, sick.
And to be fair, they've probably done stuff like this before, but it caught my eye.
Yes. All bikes are great.